And a check. The regional stock markets have recovered, and we'll go through most of these and you'll see. The interest rates, especially across the East African region, also increased. Now, many of you may not believe, but our currency has actually appreciated against the regional currencies except Kenya. Now, that tells you the stability of the economy over the last 1 year. So if you look at the interest rate, if you look at inflation, June 2023 was 4.9. June 2024, it has dropped to 3.9%. And part of that was basically driven by a reduction in prices for most food crops, manufactured foods, and other essential commodities. If you look at our domestic debt market, on the right to you, you kind of see what happened to the bond market. Look at the Uganda, the 10-year bonds increased from 14.7 to 16. 20-year bond increased from 15.3 to 16.7. Kenya also went up from 14.73 for a 10-year bond to 17.3. The 20-year bond went up from 14.61 to 17.75. Then the Tanzania bond went up from 10.34 to 12.3. The 20-year 12 to 15.24. The implication of that is basically it helps us a lot because the bulk of our investments, right around 78, 79, 80%, is in the bond market. And we kind of tend to take advantage of that and lock in some good rates as we do it. Because if you lock in a 20-year bond, that means basically you've got a sustainable return for our members. If you look at the stock market, all of them, Nairobi Stock Exchange, Uganda Stock Exchange, Dar es Salaam, and Rwanda Stock Exchanges, all of them rose up during the year. It means that for valuation purposes, the stock that we had held in the previous year basically went up. And one of the things that happened for us this year, if many of you may know, we're big investors in MTN and Airtel, and that had contributed to the return that we have for the market in Uganda. It is between 5% to 10%. At the end of June, it was 7.7%. What's interesting with real estate is, if you look at our pension towers, look at Loboa, look at Workers' House, look at Useful Will, look at all the properties we own, it's only 7.7% of our portfolio. But guess what? We get the most trouble from that because it is the most visible in terms of what we do. But in terms of the size of the portfolio, it's actually relatively small compared to the entire asset base that we have. Performance. One of the things that I think we really want to, many of you have been following us, and I know Paul has been doing this. In 2015, we set up what we call a 20-year strategic plan. At that time, we were 5.5 trillion shillings in assets. Our goal and our plan was to hit 20 trillion by June 2025. We hit that number in January 2024, 18 months ahead of schedule. So by the end of June 2024, the fund has grown to 22.13 trillion shillings. So actually we grew by about 2 trillion shillings between January and June, which is incredible. And I will share with you later what that means for us as a fund. At our funds, what we call under management, the year before we had 18.56. You look at 2023, 2023-24, we are 22.13. What is interesting is you can see that when you look at the trend over the last 5 years, we've actually been growing year on. If you look at the growth in 2019, 2022, we grew by about 2.2. 15.6, 17.26, we grew by about almost 1.7 trillion. 2021-22, we didn't grow that much, it was about 1.3 trillion, and then this year we've grown almost by 4 trillion shillings for the financial year. So we grew by about 19.2%. If you look at our contributions, and this is a good number to actually tell, because if you follow the money, it tells a story. The last 5 years, 1.27 in 2019, 2021 was 1.37, 2022, 1.49, 2023, 1.72, 2024, 1.93 trillion. It has been increasing, and basically tells us that more and more people are entrusting the fund with their savings, and that's the story of that contribution. So last year, our contribution grew by 12.2%, which bodes well for that. We come to what we call the total realized revenue. Remember the other revenue we talked about, the valuations. Here we take away that noise. We take away the noise of these market valuations. And we just show you what the realized earnings were. And it consists of your interest income, dividends, rental income. Grew by 15%. Last year it was 2.2 trillion. This year it grew to 2.5 trillion shillings, about 300 billion shillings more between the 2 years that we have. Now that's realized income, money that's actually we call now in our pockets for that purpose. Cost to income ratio. If you look at cost to income ratio, for many of you who may be in the financial world, this measures how much you spend out of each shilling you raise in revenues. Our cost to income ratio was 8.66% the year before. It went up slightly to 8.77%. The best way to compare this number is if you look at the banking industry, and it's the wrong comparison because we are not a bank, but it's the closest you can come to a bank. The average cost income ratio is around 60% for banks. In other words, for each 100 shillings they get in revenues, they spend 60 shillings in costs. With us, for each 100 shillings we raise in revenues, we are spending only 8.77 shillings in costs. Points a bit of efficiencies that we built around the fund with time. There's a measure that is used to measure the efficiency or how efficient a pension fund is. It's actually a global measure. It's called cost of administration. You take your total expenses, divide that by your total assets. It gives you what's called your cost of administration. This year, we hit 1%. In fact, our target by the end of next year is to make sure that we bring that number below 1%. Now, if you think it's been coming down and we're managing it coming down, if you do a comparison, say Nssf Kenya, that number is over 2.2%. Nssf Tanzania, that number is closer to 3%. The global average for funds our size, the standard's around 2%. We are at 1% as a fund. Again, to point to the efficiencies. In fact, sometimes you call it how well you sweat your assets to generate value in that case as we do it. Compliance, 57%. And compliance means that an employer who remits contributions every month. That's how we measure our compliance. We want to bring that number up. And one of the things that we tell our members is please ensure that your employer sends your money because it's your money. We are collecting on your behalf. And many guys sometimes fall prey to employers who tell them, don't send in your money. You don't need to send in your Nssf. They're actually stealing from you. What they're telling you is we don't want to send in the 10%. So we are telling you not to have the 5%. This is something that we need to do because it will help that member when that member becomes eligible. It is your money. So please make sure that you participate and tell your employer, send in your money. Faithfully, every month. This number, the 57, we've excluded those employers who send maybe every 2 months, they default, and then they send maybe every 3 months, then in 4 months they catch up. We've excluded from that number. But if we faithfully do that, it matters a lot for the member as they become. These are the benefits we paid. We have basically 6 age withdrawal survival. Yeah, we have about 6. There's one there that's missing. But what's interesting is if you look at last year, we paid out 1.19 trillion shillings, which was slightly less than what we paid the year before. What's happening is, what we found out now, most people are now comfortable. The jump between 2021 and 2022 was people came for their mid-term. So it jumped up from 642 to 1.189. That was a jump in terms of what will happen there. But as time is going on, we are finding out most members actually willing to let us keep their money a bit longer than they actually need. Interestingly enough, we paid out to benefits to about 44,000 members, slightly less than who came to claim the year before, 48,000 members. It's not necessarily a bad thing if your members come. That means that we are actually beginning to plan. You won't believe that the people who came for their mid-term, I think they were just testing us to see, would they get their money? So they got their money and then brought it the next day. So we think what they were trying to do is, will you guys actually pay us? And we did. Then they brought it back. But also it points that people begin to realize, you know what, if I don't have to, let me leave it there. When I'm ready, I'll go for it, and which is a good thing for that purpose. Midterm benefit payments dropped from 272 in the year before to 176. Part of it is most who should have qualified came for the money. Others are waiting. They're actually waiting until they're ready for the money to come for it, which we think is good. The matrix, we follow customer satisfaction. We faithfully follow this. If you come to our branches, most likely there is a little thing you'll feel for us to measure this. Somebody may have called you. We do it. We're at 88%. Our target is really 95%, which is a very, very high bar. Most companies would be glad to have 70%. Our bar is slightly different, 88% in terms of what we need to do for that purpose. Staff engagement. When you come to a branch or when you interact with us digitally, you're meeting somebody, you're talking to somebody. There's a correlation between how well your staff are engaged and how well they treat your customers. It's a strong correlation. And for employers, please do not mistreat your staff. Why? Because that staff you've mistreated is the one who interacts with your customer. And if that staff is unhappy, there is no way they're going to give good service to a customer. So with us, we track this because it tells us a lot that if our staff remain engaged, they will serve our customers well. 89%. If you look at the previous slide, the customer satisfaction was 88%. And there's a correlation with those two numbers that you do. So it's really important that you're actually able to do those things. So when you look at how we deliver our strategy, people are very important, and the most important people when we deliver our strategy in that case. What are the you come? Barbara is here when we do that, which was the 26th of September, when we'll be able to know what that rate is going to be for this coming year. The implication for us is this, the performance we just shared with you, that there's a value proposition that we have always come up with. There are three for us that we promise you as members. One is safety. And safety has two components for us. One, that when you come and you're eligible for your money, it will be there. Safety, that it drives our control environment, drives how we do business. That safety proposition, that value, that we promise your money will be safe. But the other aspect of safety is interesting is, not only will your money be there, but you won't lose value in the process. That's why we have this promise that at any interest rate that we declare, it must be at least 2 percentage points above 10-year inflation to preserve the purchasing power of your shilling. So that if you gave us 1 million shillings 5 years ago, what we give you now from interest added to it and so on, the purchasing power you had of that 1 million shilling 5 years ago is actually preserved. So that money may be now 1.3, 1.5. And that drives us a lot in terms of what we do. So this performance says that promise we will sustain, and that promise we can keep as we go along there. The other two, of course, convenience, which is basically ability for us to do business with us anywhere, anytime, on any device, at any time. And we'll deliver that. That's why we find our digital channel help us. You come, you can interact with us anywhere and anytime. The last one is empowerment. By empowerment, this basically means, guys, beginning next year, I'm really encourage you guys, begin to think about saving voluntarily. So you have an opportunity when something strikes and you need to tap into your money. Because remember, the money you put in the mandatory side is locked. There are standards, there are requirements to get to it. One of the things that sometimes breaks my heart is somebody has got 100 million shillings in his account in Nssf. And his house is being foreclosed on. And he can't tap that money because the eligibility was actually prescribed when you can come for your money in Nssf. And we don't break the law. So you find somebody helpless, you're struggling, trying to figure out what you can help him, but house is being foreclosed on. And that's why I'm telling guys, as voluntary options come, save more money because you never know when you may need it. That's what we call empowerment. We empower you so you're not helpless when some of these instances come that you may need to tap into it. What we've done with this fund is basically now to look forward to 2035. And we've talked about this. Our vision 2035 has just got 3 deliverables strategically. That one will grow this fund from 22 trillion shillings now, 50 trillion shillings by 2035. That's a big number. That means we're going to have to grow this fund by 28 trillion between now and 2035 trillion. We think that's an easy number. I think we'll get there very easily. Is the second number that is that we need at least 50% of Uganda's working population saving the Nssf. Think about that. Right now it is 11%. So we need to dial that number and bring in more and more Ugandans into the savings culture, saving environment. This means border borders, it means farmers, it means market vendors, whoever has that they need to begin thinking of saving for their own retirement. And the earlier somebody starts, the more money they will have with the passage of time. So you don't have to wait until say, okay, now when I get to that, I will begin saving. No. If you can begin saving at 20, begin at 20, because it matters a lot in that case. And we want to do all that, grow the fund, have more people saving while maintaining a 95% customer satisfaction level. In other words, we do not want our service levels to go down. So we'll do everything we can to make sure that the same quality of service you are getting today, we even improve on it, because we can actually do that together as a team. So thank you. That's kind of a broad just overview how we performed. I'm going to invite Mr. Kasato and Mr. Mwanje to come and join me here. The hard questions they will ask, because these are actually their numbers. Okay.